On the night of May 28, 1453, an entire empire waited in silence. The walls of Constantinople had stood for 1,000 years. They had survived plagues. They had survived sieges. They had survived crusaders. But this night was different. Across the dark fields outside the city, an army of nearly 80,000 men, prepared for one final assault. Cannons stood ready. Ships blocked the harbor. And inside the city, fewer than 8,000 defenders, prepared to fight for a civilization that had already begun to fade. This was not just the fall of a city. It was the end of the Roman Empire, not the Western Empire that fell in 476. The Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, and by sunrise, it would be gone. For over 1,000 years, Constantinople had been the wealthiest city in Europe. Its walls were legendary. The Theodosian walls, built in the 5th century, were considered nearly impenetrable. 3 layers of defense. Moats, outer walls, inner walls towering over attackers. Armies had tried before and failed, but in 1453 something had changed. Gunpowder. For the first time in history, massive cannons were used against the city's walls. One of them, designed by a Hungarian engineer named Orban, was so large it required hundreds of men to move. It fired stone balls weighing over 600 kilograms. Every blast shook the ground. Every impact weakened stone that had stood for centuries. Inside the city, Emperor Constantine XI walked among his soldiers. He knew reinforcements were unlikely. Western Europe had promised help, but very little arrived. The Byzantine Empire had been shrinking for centuries. By 1453, it was little more than the city itself, and a few scattered territories. Outside the walls stood Sultan Mehmed II, only 21 years old, ambitious, strategic, determined to make history. He did not want merely to conquer a city. He wanted to transform it, to turn Constantinople into the capital of a new empire, the Ottoman Empire. The siege lasted 53 days. Cannon fire pounded the walls daily. Ottoman forces launched repeated assaults. Each time the defenders fought them back. But numbers matter. Resources matter. And time was running out. Then came the final night. On May 28th, Mehmed ordered a full assault at dawn. Inside the city, churches filled with citizens praying. Some believed divine intervention would save them. Others prepared for death. When the attack began before sunrise, waves of soldiers advanced. First irregular troops, then trained soldiers, then elite janissaries. The fighting was brutal. At one of the breaches in the wall, a small gate was reportedly left unsecured. Ottoman troops poured through. Chaos spread quickly. Emperor Constantine XI removed his imperial insignia and joined the fighting as a common soldier. He was never seen again. By mid-morning, the Ottoman flag flew over Constantinople. The last Roman emperor was dead. The Byzantine Empire had ended. But here is where the story becomes larger than a siege. The fall of Constantinople did not just change borders. It changed the world. When the city fell, many Greek scholars fled westward. They carried with them ancient manuscripts of Greek philosophy, science, and mathematics, texts that had been preserved in Byzantine libraries. For centuries, these works helped ignite the Renaissance in Europe. The collapse of one empire accelerated the rise of another. Trade routes to Asia became more difficult for Europeans. This pushed explorers to search for new sea routes. Within decades, Columbus would sail west. Vasco da Gama would round Africa. The age of exploration began, partly because one city fell. Gunpowder warfare proved its dominance. Medieval fortifications became obsolete. The age of castles ended. The age of cannons began. And the Ottoman Empire would rise as a global power. For centuries. But here is the deeper question. Did the empire collapse in a single night? Or had it been dying for 200 years? Long before 1453, the Byzantine Empire had suffered internal division, religious conflicts, economic strain, civil wars. In 1204, during the Fourth Crusade, Western Christian forces had sacked Constantinople. Not Muslim armies, Christian crusaders. They looted the city, destroyed treasures, weakened its foundations. The empire never fully recovered. By the time Mehmed arrived, the walls were still strong, but the empire behind them was fragile. History often compresses events into a dramatic ending, but collapses are rarely sudden. They are slow fractures that finally give way. Constantinople did not fall in a single night. It fell over generations. And that may be the most important lesson. Empires rarely explode. They erode, silently, gradually, until one final moment makes the decline visible. And when that moment comes, it feels sudden, it feels catastrophic. But the cracks were always there. The fall of Constantinople marked the true end of the Roman legacy. A civilization that began in 27 BC, finally disappeared in 1453. Almost 15 centuries of history ended in a morning, and yet, from its ashes, new powers rose. The Ottomans transformed the city into Istanbul. They preserved parts of its infrastructure, converted churches into mosques, turned it into a center of trade and culture. The city did not die, changed identity, and perhaps that is the real story. Civilizations do not vanish completely. They evolve. They transform. They leave fragments behind. The Roman Empire never truly disappeared. Its laws, architecture, language, and culture still shape the modern world. But the illusion of permanence died in 1453. And since that day, every empire has lived with the same silent fear, that no wall is unbreakable, no power eternal, no civilization immune to decline. But Constantinople was not the first Rome to fall. Nearly 1,000 years earlier, another empire collapsed in the West. In the year 476, the Western Roman Empire officially ended, when a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer deposed the last Roman emperor. But historians agree on something important. Rome did not fall in 476, fell slowly, over decades, even centuries. Economic decline weakened the state. Inflation spiraled out of control. Military loyalty shifted from Rome to individual generals. Political corruption became normalized. Borders stretched too far. And gradually, confidence in the system eroded. People did not wake up one morning and say, "Rome is over." They adapted. They adjusted. They survived, until the structure that held everything together simply gave way. The same pattern can be seen again and again. The Byzantine Empire fractured from internal division. The Ottoman Empire, centuries later, would become known as the sick man of Europe. The British Empire once controlled a quarter of the world's population. Today it is an island nation. The Spanish Empire dominated global trade. Then it faded. History does not repeat perfectly, but it rhymes. And every empire believes it is different, that it is stronger, that decline is something that happened to others. Constantinople believed its walls would hold. Rome believed its legions would endure. The Ottomans believed their dominance was permanent. But empires are not destroyed only by enemies. They are weakened by complacency, by division, by arrogance, by economic imbalance, by leaders who underestimate long-term decay. The fall of Constantinople teaches something deeper than the power of cannons. It teaches that technology accelerates collapse. When gunpowder changed warfare, old defenses became obsolete overnight. Those who adapt survive. Those who cling to old systems fall. And this pattern has repeated. Every time technology shifts dramatically, the printing press disrupted power structures. Industrialization transformed global dominance. Digital technology reshaped economies. When change comes, it does not ask permission. It rewards flexibility and punishes stagnation. So was 1453 inevitable? Some historians argue yes. They say the Byzantine Empire was too weakened, too isolated, too small. Others argue that if Western Europe had sent stronger support, the city might have survived. History often balances on small decisions. A delayed fleet, a missed alliance, a single breached gate. But perhaps the more important question is this: why are we so fascinated with the fall of civilizations? Because it forces us to confront something uncomfortable. Nothing is permanent. No structure is guaranteed. No system immune. We look at ancient ruins and imagine strength frozen in stone. But every ruin was once alive, filled with people who believed their world would continue indefinitely. And they were wrong. The citizens of Constantinople did not think they were living. In the final chapter, they thought they were living in the present, just like every generation does. The fall of Constantinople marked a turning point in world history, but it was not the end of civilization. It was a transition. The city changed hands. The culture shifted, but humanity continued. And that may be the final lesson. Empires fall. Cities burn. Flags change. But knowledge survives. Ideas survive. People adapt. The Roman Empire ended, but Roman law influences modern governments. Byzantine scholars carried knowledge west. Ottoman architecture reshaped skylines. Civilizations do not disappear. They transform. And perhaps the real story, it is about resilience, because even after the walls fell, the city did not vanish. It evolved, and it still stands today as Istanbul, a reminder that endings are rarely absolute. They are chapters, and somewhere right now, in some powerful capital city, leaders believe their walls are unbreakable. History suggests otherwise.